Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Barr, and today I want to talk about the nature of what other people tend to say about ourselves, about heroes, about other individuals. What brought this idea to mind, surprise of all surprises, is our president. Because one of the things that has always bugged me about him, in particular with this second presidency, is what he is constantly saying about himself. There seems to be such a desire for him to be remembered, for his legacy to be one that is positive, is impactful, that I oftentimes see and hear him making so many grandiose statements that it's really gotten to be pathetic at this point. In complete honesty, it is truly pathetic. And it got me thinking that what other people say about us is oftentimes more indicative of who we are as individuals and as heroes. I think of the people that I've had the privilege to interview for my hero studies. And all of these people, there are just so many things that I want to say about them. I think of how I described Michael Marshall, about him and his skepticism, about being the king of skepticism. And with my friend Reverend Alba Onofrio, and how she, if more people were like her as a Christian, then I would not have the problems that I have with Christianity. What I've said about my friends, my friend Ben, and how he is just one of the most loving and supportive people. My friend Brandon, who, God, is so accomplished for how young of a man he really is. And what I've said about my partner Libby, and how she has just been such an exemplar of steadfastness, how she has navigated so many terrible situations around her mental health, and how strong she has been through all of that. These are things that I say about some of these people who I dearly love. These are people that I truly believe and call heroes. Or I believe are and I call heroes. If I were to say these things about myself, these things that I've said of others, and I say those about myself, then that comes across as egotistical. That comes across as self-aggrandizing. And I have tried to navigate this balance of what is helpful for us to say about ourselves. And then there are just these stark examples of how awful it can be if we go too far in the other direction. Too many people that I work with have struggled with even feeling shame about saying anything positive about themselves. It has inspired many conversations about how it's okay to be proud of who we are, to be proud of what we have accomplished. And then there are those who take it way too far the other way, that it almost turns into a delusion. That's right. I firmly believe that Donald Trump is delusional in many of the things that he says. I have no doubts that he believes what he is saying, and yet what he is still saying is delusional. It's problematic. What is more valuable are the messages that people say who truly know us. It's very telling who the people are that have received things like Nobel Prizes, those who have had memorials or statues erected for their accomplishments. It's very telling who are the presidents whose faces were carved into Mount Rushmore. And that's a whole bag of worms that I don't want to bag of worms. That's a whole can of worms I don't want to get into too deeply, because we're also talking about people who carved the faces of white American presidents on a very sacred mountain for some Native American tribes. Yet these are examples of the value of what these other people are saying. Am I saying that these people didn't have flaws? Of course not. I mean, George Washington was a slave owner, and that's something that is abhorrent. Everyone who has had some kind of monument, statue, memorial that has been dedicated to them, they have been flawed individuals. And others have also recognized the very powerful things that they have done to impact the lives of others in our society. And talking about people who are self-aggrandizing, I am very suspicious of someone who is wanting to erect a monument to themselves. Our current president wanting to put his name on the Kennedy Center, him wanting to erect an arch, a freedom arch, I think is what he's calling it. He's wanting to make a ballroom that is attached to the White House. He wants to be the one to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to be the one who is recognized for good deeds that he's not done. That's something that should be very suspect. That is something that is very telling about the kind of person that we are dealing with. This is someone who thinks they are the hero in their own story. And, as I've said many times before, these are the people that are antagonists. Someone who only looks out for themselves, someone who only looks out for one small group of people, someone who is afraid of losing their power, or people who are afraid of losing their power. These people are antagonists because they are antagonistic towards so many other people, and they're not seeing the humanity in really any of these people. We had Renee Good, who was shot to death, and the ICE officer who performed this heinous execution probably thinks that he's a hero, and yet he was the one who is not valuing the life of another person. Any one of these people that are going around trying to round up illegal immigrants, if you can't pick up on my sarcasm as I say illegal, then you're probably listening to the wrong podcast. But these people are so disrespectful of human life that to look at what they're doing, even my own words would make people tend to swing to the notion that these people are not heroic. They're villains. That's really what they are, is they're villainous. Ranting aside, at least for now, I can't promise that there won't be another rant as I'm continuing this conversation. But with that rant aside for now, what I want to ask is, what do other people say about you? Or what do you say about some of the very important people in your life? What are the things that you say about these individuals? To be a little vulnerable here, I want to share what some other people have said about me in the past. This was about 2, maybe 3 years ago. I was participating in a psychodrama with some of my friends and acquaintances when I was a part of Husband Material. And I was dealing with a lot of these horrible messages that I've received over the years. In fact, I've got a little note here that my friend Drew was taking some notes on, and these are some of the things that I had shared about why I was so harsh to myself. I was ridiculed. I was name-called. I was discriminated against. I was called queer. I was called gay. I was called a girl. I was called a faggot or a fag. And this started when I was in the 6th grade. Actually, maybe even before then, but I really noticed it in the 6th grade, and it kind of continued all the way through my junior and part of my senior year in high school. I was called a horse's ass by a close family member. We had nicknames of Bubba and Tank that were not very flattering to the weight and the size that I've lived with almost my entire life. I felt used a lot. In the now 16 years that Libby and I have been married, I've never been the breadwinner. I believe that I was not a man, that I was not good enough, that I was never masculine enough. And these were messages that I received from many, many people. I was told when I was in the Christian church that it was my responsibility as the husband, as the man, to be the breadwinner, to be the one who leads the family, to be the one who is the arbiter and the one who makes the final decisions about anything that goes on in this house. It's my responsibility as the husband to be in charge of the finances. As the husband, if Libby and I had kids, it would be my responsibility to bring them up right, that I would be the one in charge of spiritually guiding them. I would probably be the one who would be disciplining them, because what I was raised with is that was the responsibility of the father. The dad was the one who was effectively the punisher. These are all things that have been said of me in some of the worst times in my life. And let's be honest here. A lot of these were things that made me feel less than, and a lot of these were the messages that when I was a freshman in high school, I was seriously considering ending my own life and believed that there was no value in what I had to say, or in who I was, that there was no point in even me existing, that in some way I was a failure. All of that having now been said, I'm going to turn to this stack of sticky notes that some of my friends from Husband Material wrote down, and they had posted around a mirror so that I could look at myself in this mirror and I could see what these other people were saying about me. This is a lot of sticky notes, so I'm not going to share all of them here. But these were what some dear friends of mine had said about me, and even some people that I had just met that weekend. I am strong. I'm welcoming. I'm tender-hearted. I'm compassionate. I'm showing these on the video version, so if you're wondering why it's taken me so long, that's why. Manly. I am a leader. This is one of my favorites, and this is something that I've said to a lot of my clients. I'm a fucking badass. I'm authentic. I'm curious. And that's just a small amount compared to this whole stack that I have here. But I'm not going to take the time to read through all of these because, that this was more of an exercise to help me with my own self-image. In fact, I just found something else. I've got these things sitting here on my desk because I've actually been meaning to put them in some kind of a spreadsheet or something that I can refer to. But this is something that my friend, I believe this was Drew as well, had written here for me. And it says, Marcus, new and dear friend, caring giver, passionate healer, true man, trusting, accepting, safe. Now, a lot of those probably don't mean a whole lot to you because I'm the one who's saying them. You're hearing me say these things. Yet these were things that were said of me by other people. And let me tell you, when I read them, when I was even speaking them over me, it was challenging. It was challenging for me to accept them because I didn't believe any of them were true. Because for so long, I believed all of those horrible, deprecating messages about who I was from teenagers when I was in middle school and high school. What some of my family said about me in our worst days as family. Yet, these are also things that I can acknowledge in myself because they were first said of me by others, by people that I trust, people that I know see a very different side of me than I even see in myself. This has been a perpetual struggle for me. It is so hard for me to recognize my inherent worth as an individual. And God, even right now, at this time, I am applying for some part-time work. And I dressed up in some of my old work clothes and I went out to speak with some of the people who would be in charge of hiring, and I felt humiliated by that. I have been doing this work as a coach for 5 years now, and having to don my collared shirt and a tie, pair of slacks, and my nice shoes. Make sure that everything is groomed and I don't have a hair out of place, which is very challenging for me these days because I have hair in my beard and on my scalp that are just not wanting to cooperate a lot of the time. And having to go and prostrate myself to some of these other people in order to make a good impression. Having to dust off a resume that I hadn't used in 10 years. These were things that felt like I had failed. I felt like I had failed as a husband, as a man, as a small business owner, because I never ever wanted to be back in this position again. Those thoughts and the feelings that they drudge up, they were so strong. And I guess this is going to be a little therapeutic for me because, well, I was supposed to see my therapist today, and unfortunately she had a migraine. And so I'm just kind of verbally processing this as I go. I was just in a terrible headspace about it because I felt like a failure. I thought I was a failure. And because of that, I just felt depressed. I felt inadequate. I thought that I had let Libby down. I let Odin down. I've let so many people down. And it's good for me to remember what a lot of these other people have said about me. Because if I'm just left to my own devices, the things that I'm going to say about myself, man, if my mind was a radio and it was broadcasting on the airwaves and people could hear what I was thinking about myself, I would just curl up in a ball and die. However, having some of these reminders that I am authentic, that some of these people, they had just met me that weekend and had such beautiful things that they could say about me, that's something I need to remind myself about more. And I am the first one to admit that I'm not a hero, that I'm still in the process of becoming the hero in my story. And I hope that my journey can inspire others to do the same. I don't ever want to be that person that is like Donald Trump, who cannot speak anything without it being complete hate towards others, or just so self-aggrandizing that I'm surprised his ego allows him to walk out of any room. I don't want to be that kind of person. And yet, I don't want to be the kind of person that I am often stuck with. Someone who just always thinks the worst about him, is his own worst critic. And so, one of the things that I want to challenge you on, my friend, is take the time to reach out to those you trust and to hear what they have to say about you. I was listening to a podcast. Wow, this was back in June of 2024. And one of the things that it challenged me to do was to ask people who know me very well if they could describe me in 3 to 5 words, what would those words be? And I reached out to pretty much all of my friends about this. My friend Brandon, he answered saying jovial, creative, accommodating, attuned, and ended with hope that helps. My friend Ben, when I posed the same question to him, he said loyal, kind-hearted, and hardworking. When I posed the same question to Libby, she said that I'm genuine, empathetic, passionate, trustworthy, and creative. My friend Katie said that I am grounded, relatable, thought-provoking, jokester, and comfortable. My friend John, I forgot about what he said here. He said I am caring, supportive, thorough, thoughtful, and tall. And the last one I'll share here is from my friend Dan. He said, I am friendly, caring, committed, thoughtful, and passionate. This was a vulnerable step for me, having to actually reach out and say, hey friend, if you were to describe me in 3 to 5 words, what would those words be? And those words are so much more powerful coming from these people who I love and I trust so dearly. And I want to encourage you to do the same thing. I encourage you to reach out to those who you love and trust and ask them, if you were to describe me in 3 to 5 words, what would those words be? And be open to whatever it is that they say. Because the things that truly tell us what our heroic qualities are not going to be what we say about ourselves. Let's face it, when I am self-deprecating and just beating myself to a bloody pulp with my own thought life, that's not going to tell me the kind of person that I am. And if we go the other end of the spectrum and we take a look at what Donald Trump has been doing and the things that he continues to say about himself, that's not showing us good qualities about him. That's not showing us anything that is heroic. And so I want to challenge you with that. I want to challenge you to reach out to people that you love and that you trust. And you trust them to be honest with you. To say, if you were to describe me in 3 to 5 words, what would those words be? And then be open to what they say. And it may be difficult to receive them. Even if everything that they say is good, that can sometimes be even harder to receive because we're so used to talking down to ourselves. Or at least I am. I don't know, maybe you're different. I hope you're different from me. This is a miserable time to be in my head a lot of the times. But I encourage you to take this challenge. Be gentle with yourself. Be gracious. And just know that you're not alone on this journey. We'll talk again next week. And until then, live strong for today.